because I'm going to cover an important topic for you guys to get out there and be productive. And so let's chat about it. Okay, so you know that the sales process for the ATM is really a 5-step sales process. So I'm going to draw out I call it the submarine, but actually I'm going to kind of draw over the boxes I put in before. But it starts with bond and rapport. Okay, then it's finding the client's pain, their why do they need it, and then we exercise what we call the upfront contract. In other words, okay, in order to fix your pain, then this is what I'm going to do for you, and then we're going to help you get covered, and then here's the fulfillment of that promise you made on the contract by showing them the rates, and then writing up the application, and then the post-sale. And we went last week, we really covered the post-sale process in depth. And I've been getting a lot of hits on that on YouTube. It's been pretty popular. I think it's probably helping some people out there. And so what I'm going to focus on today is the bond and rapport. So we're going to really nail some things on bond and rapport. And to me, if you want, remember, the 5 elements of a righteous sale is number 1, they trust you, they believe you. Number 3, they need it. Number 4, they want it. And number 5, they can afford it. So when you got all these 5 things checked off, then you've made a sale, and you've made what I call a righteous sale, a sale that sticks, okay, because they trust you, they believe you, they need it, they want it, and they can afford it. So when you've got all those 5 things checked off, then you've done the right thing for them. You've got a policy that's going to stick, makes it through placement, makes it through persistency, and these 5 steps in the ATM process is what will help you achieve these 5 things. So the thing that we're going to focus on today is the bond and rapport, the first step in the process, and that's the trust and believe. The trust and believe part is all based on people trusting you so they can believe you. Have you ever believed anyone you didn't trust? Probably the source of your disbelief is because you didn't trust them, okay? You didn't trust them. And so trust is one of the most important things that you can create. And trust is the child of the parent of bond and rapport. Bond and rapport breeds trust, okay, and it breeds belief. In other words, you can't ask hard pain questions unless you have strong bond and rapport, because the client's not going to want to relate their emotional aspect of why they want to do this. And that's where you got to get to, because people buy an emotion and then they justify it by logic. The whole sales process that we're talking about in a one-night close system like I was on our lead program is an emotional sale. If you don't get it down to the emotion, then the logic sale is not going to matter, because you can justify logic all day long. They might buy it, but they're probably not going to keep it. They'll probably cancel. You know, people, they buy it emotionally. Okay, they buy it emotionally. Even the most nerdy engineer type that ask a ton of nerdy questions, they buy it on emotion. And that's where you got to get to. In order to do the pain process right, and I'm going to cover that maybe next week, you got to get the bond and rapport down. So that's why it's called the submarine, because you go through each compartment. You can't do pain unless you got bond and rapport. You can't do the upfront contract unless you got the pain process right. You can't fulfill your promises until you got all 3 of these done. And you know, everyone builds on the other. You can't move forward until you close down each one of these hatches. That's why we call it a submarine. Okay, you close down the hatch, and then you're moved into the next bulkhead, so you don't drown and kill yourself if that other section got blown up or whatever. You know what I mean? So trust and belief is where it's at. And the thing about this process in bond and rapport that I'm talking about is you're not doing the fakey bond and rapport when you walk into someone's home and you see pictures of Elvis, and then you ask a question, gee, you must like Elvis. You know, they got Elvis stuff all over the place. You know what? They know you're going to ask it. They want to see, okay, this is probably one of those sales kind of guys that's just going to ask me everything about me. Oh, that's a nice picture of your children. You know, all the fakey stuff. Look, your clients are smarter because just the week before they had the window replacement guy in their house and he did exactly the same thing. So when you do exactly the same thing as all the salespeople that go in their house, then what they do is they think you're just like them. See, this is called the anti-salesperson sales system, because when you're done with them, they don't think of you as a salesperson. They think of you as a friend trying to help them out, not a salesperson. That's why our whole ATM is designed to break down the barriers of you being the salesperson, them being the client, to where you're a friend trying to help a friend out, right? You're a friend trying to help a friend. And so bond rapport is how everything starts. They're going to make a decision on you on the first 90 seconds. You better get that part right quick, okay? So we're not talking fake. We're talking genuine stuff. So the questions you ask are genuine, all right? So let's talk about one of the first elements of bond and rapport that I think is, super important. And number one, it is mirror and match. Now, the mirror and match thing is really based on the concept that people like people who are like them, right? People like people who are like them. And you know how it is. I mean, when you go to a party, right? When you go to a party and you're like hanging out, you finally, find someone you didn't know before and you meet them, and you start talking to them. And then the further conversation, you start asking them about them, you find out that, wow, there's a lot of commonality. Just like what Jonas said about that gal he was talking to on the phone, they had a lot of common elements to their backgrounds, to things they believed, things they, liked. And they found bridges. You're building bridges, and when you're at a party, you find someone like that, and it's like, man, it seems like I've known you all my life. Well, the reason why is because they're like you. They may be a different race, different religion, but there's some elements that you have in common, right, that you've got rapport. Now, here's what I believe. I believe that kind of in the pie chart of people that you can relate to on a natural basis, just because who you are and they are, you probably maybe relate to, I don't know, maybe it's 20% of the people out there where you just have a natural bond and rapport with. Doesn't matter. You get you two together and you guys are like, or gals are like best friends, BFFs, okay? The key to sales is you never want to your close rate to be dependent on this, because if you just randomly go out there, maybe you'll close 20%, but closing 20% sucks because you're going to not make any money. You're going to be broke as a joke. You know what I'm saying? What you want to do, what you need to do in the bond and rapport process is you need to expand your ability to relate to people. If I can get you to 80%, 90%, then man, you're rocking. There's just some people that no matter what you do, what they do, you don't get each other. It's like you could be speaking Chinese and they're speaking Spanish and you can't communicate. There's just some people like that, okay? But I'm just trying to get you through these techniques to get you where you're relating, where you can relate and build bond and rapport with 90% of the people you sit down. And with our average closing rate being 55%, I think that if you can build up your rapport creation capability, you'll be able to increase your closing rate, increase your hiring rate, increase the people that want to follow you, okay, in this business. So let's talk about mirror matching, and there are 3 elements to mirror and matching, okay? Number 1, vocal, the voice. And the voice is rate and tonality. Okay, now what I mean by mirror matching on the voice, you want to sound like them, but you don't want to mimic them. So people, again, they relate to people that are like them. So if they got a deeper voice than yours, okay, if you hear that they're deeper tonality, you want to maybe bring your rate or your tonality down to theirs. So when you're calling on the phone or when you're doing the ATM, you find that the husband he talks really, really deep. And so I would like bring my rate of speech, my tonality a little bit deep like him. I'd kind of lower it a little bit. You don't got to go as low as him. You don't got to go as high as a woman if you're a man. But if you go a little bit higher than what you're doing now, then maybe there's a little bit closer to where you get to where they hear you better. There's just something about matching tonality, all right? The other aspect of vocal mirror matching is the rate of speech, right? So if he's lower and he talks really slow and, he uses very simple words, then what I would do is I would match his rate of speech and I would talk real slow and I would really match his level of words. Like you don't want to not relate to him by using, 50-cent words when he's using 25-cent words. You know what I mean? Don't try to blow him away with how smart you are. Okay, that's in a little bit. I'm going to talk about that, but the rate of speech. Now you know how it is. Like you have people that drive you crazy when they speak super fast, and you can't like understand them. You have to catch up. And the fast talkers are typically visual people because they got all these pictures in their mind and their mouth. They can't speak to catch up to what they're visualizing. They tend to be visual people. But if they talk fast and you talk slow, you're going to drive them nuts. So if you think they drive you nuts, you're going to drive them nuts. So you need to speed up your rate of speech to where they're at, and then you're going to be syncing right along with them. The danger with some people is they try to talk slower to a fast talking person, thinking that they're going to slow them down. It's like, no, because what you did was you broke rapport, then they'll never follow you. You need to speed up with them, okay? You need to pace them. It's called pacing. And when you can pace with them, when you know you have rapport, you can actually slow them down a little bit. It's like a runner. When you're pacing with them, and then you build the rapport, and then you slow down a little bit, they'll slow down with you. You speed up a little bit, they speed up with you, because what you did was you paced them. You create a rapport, you link them to you mentally, emotionally, and then when you run, they run. And here's how it works in the sales process. When you suggest, I think maybe it seems to me like you like this option better. How does this look to you? Because they're visual, right? How does this look to you? Then they're going to pace with you. They're going to go with your suggestions, and then they're going to think it's their suggestions. It's like this whole Jedi mind trick that you're working with them. And so first part of mirror matching is your rate of speech and the tonality of the speech. And the most important aspect of mirror matching for voice is on the phone when you're booking an appointment, right? So you got to book your appointments and you got to implement this because this is the only way that you can relate to them. See, communication between two people, what is it? It's like 90% visual, kind of the body language, and 10% verbal. I think it's something like that. It's 80-20, I don't know, something like that. But it's a small percentage verbal and 80% visual body language, the non-verbal aspect of communication. Well, if that's the case on the phone, you better get this down. So that's why you want to start out on the phone when you're booking appointments, we call it low and slow. Low and slow, just to test the client out. And when the client comes back to you and they start talking, you start matching where they're at and get that vocal bond and rapport, mirror matching going on. And then you got a shot, okay? You got a shot. Now, I get this question, well, Alex, what if they're from North Carolina and I'm from New York? Well, here's what I would do. I wouldn't try to put on that accent per se, but I would try to minimize my own accent. It's kind of like you ever see an English actor on TV they sound American. They have an American accent, which is kind of weird when you think about it. That's weird. We don't think of an American accent as an accent. It's just how we speak. But British people can put on an American accent, just like American people with an American accent can put on a British accent, right? They can talk, well, I can't do it. They can talk, or, Asian Indian accent or whatever. I would say minimize yours to be neutral. If you got a heavy accent, if you're a heavy Northeasterner, man, try to bring that back to where it's neutral. If you're talking to someone who's got a totally different accent than yours, I would just try to be as neutral as possible. And actually, when you hear some of these newscasters that are from like the deep South, and if you hear them talking just naturally, they got this Southern accent. But when they're on stage or on camera, they get rid of it and they're neutral. They're neutral. Okay? So, okay, but if there's a little twang in there, I put a little twang in there. If they like to use the word y'all, I'll use the word y'all. It's easy because Andy Albright's from North Carolina, so it's easy to North Carolina-ese, our speech, because we hear it all the time on the TWCs, But the truth is, it's true when you're in the Northeast, they don't get that manner of talking. You got to kind of match them. So that's an important thing about vocal mirror and matching. Okay, the other mirror and matching is body language. Now we're going to get into a little NLP stuff. Okay, body language. Now, body language, everyone have probably heard about body language. And you can read people with body language. The only problem with reading people with body language is you need a context to understand why people are sitting or looking the way they look, or why they're standing the way they're standing. Like, for example, if someone's got their arms folded and they're crossing their legs, you might think that they're close to what you're saying to them. That's the first thing you would think of. But what if, it's like 68 degrees in a room, the air conditioning's full blast, and they're cold? The fact that they're crossing their arms, they're not with you, they're just cold, trying to stay warm, right? So body language is a very contextual thing. Okay, so the best thing for you to do when you're in a sales situation is you mirror and match their body language. So when they're crossing their legs, you cross, you can't see me, but I'm crossing my legs. You cross your legs to match them. If they suddenly put their hands on the table like this, I would slowly put my hands on the table. If they're leaning forward, I would lean forward. Now, how do we know this works? Well, if you go into a, kind of a romantic restaurant, and you just kind of scan the people that are at the restaurant, how do you know that the couple is having a great date or having a terrible date? Well, it's pretty obvious, right? The couples that are like into each other, they're probably leaning in. They're probably maybe even holding hands, or they're like wanting to be in each other's space. They're kind of like, you see that they're matching each other. But the couples that are having a terrible time, one's like sitting like this, looking off, the other one's looking off the other direction. You can tell that there's a clear break in rapport, or there's a clear connection that's going on. And it's all, you don't have to even hear what they're saying, but you can tell something good's going on there when they're like into each other and they're mirroring each other. So you can do the same thing in a sales situation, okay? And it's interesting because people, that people don't think about you. They really kind of don't care about you, but they care about is themselves. And so under that mentality, if you're mirror matching them, they won't even know you're doing it unless you're really obvious. So if the guy is like starts putting his hands in here and leans forward, then what I would slowly do is like, okay, Joe, so tell me about, what would happen to your family if, and I would do the same thing, and I would just look at him, and he's looking at me, okay? Now the wife says, okay, now I'm going to the wife, so Mary, what do you think? And Mary's kind of sitting back, with her hands kind of on her lap. What I would do is I would turn to Mary and say, so Mary, what do you think about what Joe said about the problem about you when he dies? Okay, when you're asking pain questions, I would lean back. And then if she says, she crosses her legs, says, well, and she puts her hands on the table, I would slowly do the same thing. I cross my legs and put my hands on the table. And here's what happens, and this is the neurolinguistic programming stuff. When you mirror and match body language with your client, what happens is you start feeling what they're feeling. What happens is you start feeling any sales tension that's occurring in the interaction, and you start feeling what they're feeling. It's a really cool thing where you understand if what you're saying is making sense to them. You feel how they're feeling about what's going on. You'll feel sales tension. You'll feel good juju if that's going on, because you're mirror matching them, right? That's when you kind of really groove into them. It's an emotional connection. It's a mental connection. Hard to describe until you do it yourself. But you, like I said, like if you go on a date with someone, or if you're just out with someone, you mirror match each other. Good stuff's going on there. You're just bringing it into the sales situation, and I tell you what, things will occur to you in your head and your heart that you should say something. Where that comes from is that bond and rapport that you've created with that person, right? I promise you, it's like one of the most powerful things you can do in bond and rapport. Remember, people like people who are like them. Well, being like them is mirroring their body language. So, man, definitely do that. All right. Now, the second thing is, where are you focusing your attention? So these are some of the other bond and rapport things. Where are you looking? In other words, are you giving equal attention to the husband and wife? I've seen situations where agents all spend their time talking to the husband. Usually if they're a guy, they're always talking to the husband, and they're ignoring the wife. Well, if you're ignoring the wife, what do you think she's going to think? That you don't care about her. You don't care what she thinks, right? Have you ever been in a situation where you've got a conversation, a three-way conversation, and that other person, you're like there with a buddy, and that other person's only talking to that person, but it's not talking to you? Obviously, they don't think anything about you, right? You don't feel very good about that person because they're not giving you any respect, not even acknowledging you. And sometimes there's an unconscious thing that maybe you're nervous or whatever, but you're focusing all your time on who you think the decision maker is. Well, I'll tell you what, dude, it's not him, it's her. If anything, I'm gonna go 60-40. I'm gonna spend more time, maybe. I'd spend equal time on each other, because I definitely don't want the guy to think I don't respect him. If you're a female, sometimes it's easier just to relate to the wife. Then the guy thinks, well, she obviously doesn't care about me. So you're spending time with both. You're looking at each of them, and you're spreading like peanut butter both sides of the bread, right? Like peanut butter sandwich with only peanut butter on one side is not a good peanut butter sandwich, peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You got to spread the peanut butter evenly across the bread. Just like when you're trying to look and focus your attention on both. And like I said, if I lean one way, I'll lean towards the wife, and I'll make sure the wife knows that I respect her. Okay, like remember the first time, guys, when you met your spouse's parents, the mother and father of your soon-to-be, wife? Man, I tell you what, I promise you probably spent a lot of time with the mother, right? You focused on her and made sure that she liked you. Well, that was me, I always made sure, like when I'm dating a girl, I make sure that the mother loves me. That's the key, man. That is the key. And then the father, I'm making sure that he knows that my intentions are honorable. So, but you gotta, it's such an important thing, is who are you looking at. The other thing is questions. They're more interested in themselves. People are more interested in themselves than they are about you. And what's interesting, like, anytime I've been like at a party or when I've gotten to know somebody, I barely say anything about me. I'm always asking about them. I sound like, if you just hear one side of my conversations, it sounds like I'm an FBI investigator. I'm always asking the questions and I'm listening to them. The thing about the bond and rapport process is people want to sing their song, okay? People want to sing their song. And man, I give them every opportunity to sing their song. They want to be heard. People just need to be heard. And so I give them opportunity to listen. I listen to them and I give them a chance to talk by asking them questions. By the time I'm done with the interchange with somebody, they think I'm the best conversationalist. And when you really break it down, I'm the one doing all the questions. I'm asking all the questions. One of the funniest and probably the best exercises is to play the question game that Andy Albright talks about, where you interchange. The first person that loses is the one that doesn't ask a question. So you're asking a question. Each person's asking a question to each other, and the first person that doesn't ask a question is the one that loses. Well, that's the game here. Is you have to be in the question asking, and not being in the question answering business, right? Like when they ask a question. So Alex, so tell me about. So does this thing have that return of premium program? And I don't say, well, absolutely it does. It'll cost you double the premium. No, I say, wow, that's a great question. It sounds to me like you've heard about the return of premium program before. Why would you be asking that question? And that therein lies the key. When you ask a question, then you find out why they're asking the question. Now, you may not know that they're asking the question because they don't want it. It's like, well, when you ask a question, so why? That's a great question. Why are you asking that question? Is that important to you? Oh, no. The other agent we had in here tried to push that on us, and the price is just way too expensive. Man, I hope you're not going to be like that. Oh, no way. I'd never show you anything like that. Right? Now, if you didn't ask a question, oh, absolutely, man, we believe return of premium. It's a forced savings program. You get all your money back at the end, and all of a sudden you shut your client down because you didn't ask another question. When you get into the pain process, you've got to be willing to ask the next question, the next question. You've got to be able to drill down to more questions. So asking questions is the key. Okay. Everything rises and falls with your ATM. So let me kind of give a little bit about the About Me slide, because your ATM really, you got the beginning slide here, and then you go to your About Me slide. Do you know that your About Me slide is not really telling them about you? Okay. It's really a platform for you to ask them questions about them. So when I talk about asking questions, you start by the About Me slide. So I tell them, hey, I was born on a U.S. naval base in Morocco. That's why I'm African American. They kind of laugh at that. And my dad moved around the Navy. And then I just say a little bit about me, but then it gives me a chance to ask them, so have you guys lived here all your lives? Did you grow up in this area? Right? So you tell them a little about you, but it's all designed for you to ask questions about them. This slide is really about them, not about you. It gives you a chance to ask them questions, right? And that's what the About Me slide is, to help you build bond and rapport, is to have something to bond and rapport about, building bridges with them, right? Finding areas of commonality, and that's the About Me slide. And so a very well-structured About Me slide are really veiled questions about them. What do you want to know about them, right? I talk about children. Yeah, I've got 5 kids. I talk about how I met my wife. I met my wife in community theater, doing musical theater. Okay, that's how I met my wife. Great story. But I'm not going to tell the story. I'm going to say, how did you guys meet each other? When you start asking how they met, what happens when you ask those questions is you're controlling the conversation and getting them to a buying state of emotion. And they have the funny story about when, yeah, he was after me. And he'll say, oh, no, I was not. She was after me. Oh, really? And so which is a real story? And they just start yucking it up. And it takes them back to when they were dating, when they were falling in love with each other, right? It puts them back into the mindset of caring for each other, why they married each other. And you get them thinking and feeling those feelings for each other. They could have been fighting before you came. But when you're there and they start feeling those feelings for each other, man, it's a done deal, baby. You know what I mean? So the About Me slide is not about you, it's about them and what you want to convey and learn about them, okay? Here's another key to our submarine process, okay? So number 4, ATM about you. Okay, I'm getting to some really meaty stuff right now. Okay, this is okay, not okay. Okay, so let me describe what I mean by that. This is probably where people lose the sale most of the time in the bond and rapport. Okay, not okay. It means this is psychology back, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, the okay, not okay. In other words, you need your client to feel okay because you're not okay. Okay, and so let me describe, what does that mean? Well, have you ever been around somebody and you start, you're talking to them and say, so how things are going? Oh man, you won't believe it. I just won the lottery yesterday. I mean, I won $105 million. I mean, I'm rocking. And then all my kids are getting straight A's in school. They all got scholarships, right? And man, we just paid our house off. And I just bought this Mercedes Benz that is off the hook. It's called a Maybach, about $109,000. And oh, my life couldn't be better. And you're sitting there going, before you're feeling okay, when you talk to them, you're feeling okay. You're assuming they're feeling okay. But then the more they felt huge and awesome, the less okay you were feeling because you have your life, comparing your life to theirs. Okay? And so the more they brag about them, the more little you feel. So they start feeling more okay than you, but because that person started bragging on how awesome life is, it made you feel not okay. Now, when you're feeling not okay, they're feeling okay. It's like, I don't want to buy anything from this person, right? And you got salespeople, man. They'll sit down. They're overly enthusiastic, man. Life is great. I'm going to make this sale. Man, my career is rocking. I love insurance. Life is going awesome. I love my family. I love my God in heaven. Man, I'm doing great. So how are you doing, Mr. Client? And they're going, oh my God, my life sucks. What you need to do is you need to get them feeling that their life is awesome compared to yours. See, people compare. We're natural human beings. We compare one thing with another. Like, how did you know your spouse was a perfect person? A lot of times it's because you compared them against all the other girls or men you dated in the past. And this person kind of filled all the requirements that you're looking for compared to all the other people. Like other people in the past had mega drama, and it's like, oh gosh, I know what this is going to be like, right? Their whole life is drama. Now my whole relationship can be drama with this person. And then all of a sudden you find someone, there's no drama in their life. They're like, life's good. They're okay. It's like, but you never recognize it until you actually meet that person who is way different than the person you had trouble with, right? So the key to bond and rapport is to make sure your client feels okay. So you make them feel okay by you being not okay. So I'll take this to the extreme. This is really kind of how it sometimes works, and I've done this. I park my car, away from their house, and what I do is I kind of jog to their house, so I'm a little bit out of breath. Okay, I'm not like perfectly set up, not like all perfect. I'm looking, a little bit frazzled, okay? And I'm knocking on their door, and I'm breathing a little bit heavy, and they go, hey, hi, I'm Alex. I tried to get here on time, but man, we had some traffic, and it was just terrible getting here. The traffic around here can get really bad, especially out here on Main Street. And oh man, it's just, I'm just happy to be here. Right away, they're feeling a little bit sorry for you. They're going, oh man, I'm sorry you had to go through that, right? Oh yeah, I mean, it's nothing. I'm glad to be here. Okay, so now contrast that with you show up on their doorstep, you drive your Mercedes in front of their house. That's why, like, if you have a choice of driving the Rust Bucket or the Mercedes, drive the Rust Bucket. Okay, I had a 1988 Toyota that my parents gave me, and I actually did have a Mercedes. I had a turbo diesel, okay, back when I was selling a big black Mega. It was a yacht. But I drove the 1988 smelly Toyota Camry, okay, that had some rust on it, because I wanted my client to feel sorry for me. So I'd like pull up, and they'd see my car, and they'd go, man, this guy, man, I hope he's making it. And then but imagine I drive up my Mercedes, I got my suit on, I show up, knock on the door, I got my chest poked out. I said, "Hello, George. I'm Alex, your insurance agent. I'm the #1 agent in the country, and I'm here to bless you with my presence." And they're going, "Oh God, this guy's looking good, smelling good. This guy's sharp. Oh my gosh, I don't even want him in my house. My house is trashy. I mean, we got stuff all over the place." You know, they're worried about what you think about them. You definitely put them in a not okay situation. I'm all about being that. Oh man, I had trouble getting here. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I made it. I want to be that guy. I don't want to be dressed up to the hilt. I'll wear some jeans. You know, I'm not going to look ratty, but I'm not going to look extra special either, because I don't want to look extra special. I put on my G-Shock watch. I don't put my Rolex on. Okay, because when they see you have a Rolex, they're going, "Wow, this guy's probably going to charge us a lot of money for this policy." It's like, you're not there to impress them. You want to impress them that you're a good person, but you're not trying to make them feel not okay. So when you ask them, "So how are things going with you?" You know, when you start getting the bond rapport, don't talk about how awesome things are. In fact, you want to lean a little bit towards not okay. It's like, "Oh man, this has just been a crazy week." You ever have one of those weeks where just everything went wrong? I am just trying to catch up from that, you know. Okay, you're not awesome. You are awesome in your head, but you're not presenting yourself as awesome. You're presenting yourself as not okay. When you're not okay, they're going to feel better than you. You want them feeling way better than you, okay, instead of, like, I'm not saying get negative and depressed. What I am saying is don't be so totally awesome in front of them. Don't be mega enthusiastic about life, because, you know, when you're around someone like that, it's like, "Oh gosh, what is wrong with him?" And then you feel like there's something must be deficient in my life that I'm not as happy as that person. Okay? That's where people can blow it big time. You always want to make them feel okay, more okay than you. And if you kind of keep that comparison there, okay, you're going to create rapport with them. If you do the opposite, make them feel not okay, you've totally blown it, and you will never get it back. I promise. It goes to hell after that. Okay. Here's the other thing. Is in your head, you have to come with the attitude that I don't need this sale. I don't need this. I'm just here to help you. Whether you buy or not, I don't care. You have to go in as if you were a salaried employee. Okay? You can't think that you need this paycheck to make your bills, because you start putting that subconscious pressure on them. You do. You have to keep telling yourself, I'm financially independent. I don't need this sale. I'm here to help them. Whether they buy or not, it's up to them. I'm going to help cover them, and I'm going to cover them. I'm going to take care of them, but it's not like I need the money. Now, you know that you do, but you've got to come in with the attitude and the mindset that I'm financially independent. I don't need the business. You have to fool yourself every time. I don't need the business. And when you're rocking, you really don't, because you know that when you're out there, you're going to close a high percentage of people. Like high in our business, 70%. The average is about 50. Okay? So, hey, at least got 50%. Every percentage point above that is money in the bank. But I don't need any one sale. And you have to, like, speak it into existence that I'm financially independent. I don't need the business. I want the business. I want to take care of them. And you got to constantly speak that so that you feel it. Yeah, I've done it where I've spoke it so much that I totally believed it because I spoke it. The power of the spoken word. You say, I'm financially free. I don't need the business. I need to help them. That's what I need to do. I'm going to take care of them. I'm going to give them something that will take care of them and their families. But if they don't get it, no sweat on me. I got another person I'm seeing today. Next, right? So it's an important mentality to have so you don't put pressure on them subconsciously. Okay, finally, so number 6, I don't need the business. Okay, number 6. Then number 7, you have to talk to people with how they process information. Okay, so I'm going to go into I'm going to touch on this. I'm running out of time. People process information. They take information in one of three ways. They're either visual, they're either auditory, they hear stuff, they hear it, or they're kinesthetic, they feel it. Kinesthetic. This is all NLP stuff again. Visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Okay. So, how do you know someone's visual, auditory, or kinesthetic? There are telltale signs, and I'm gonna erase this. So number 7, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. So visual is people process images. Okay, that's how they take information in. Auditory, people hear, and they use those kind of words. Kinesthetic are how they feel. So you have to listen to how people use words. So here are the clues, the words that they use. So if you had to guess, if I said, man, I love how this thing looks. What's other visual words? Can you picture what it would look like for you to have a, can you picture me coming with a $100,000 check to help you with you and your family, right? Asking visual questions. So, Joe, how does that look to you? Right? And they use those kind of words. Well, as long as it looks good, we'll get something. Okay, I want to see this first. So they use look, see. There's, oh man, I don't have that book. I have a book, NLP book on the kind of words. I should have had that. The typical words, visual people, but it's easy. I mean, if you listen to how people talk, they start using descriptive visual words. So that's how you know they're a visual person, all right? Auditory people is like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I really, I want to find something that sounds better than that. Say use sounds, hear, all auditory type words. And so what that tells you is that, well, I better talk to them in auditory words. In other words, you're speaking their language on how they want to process information. And gang, this is huge. If you can master this, you'll be the master of bond and rapport. Like seriously, it'll be eerie. Like for example, when I talk to Andy Albright, I use dude all the time. Do you know that he uses dude with me all the time? Like Andy's the master of using the same words I use, right? I know he does it, and it's kind of funny. I hear him say, hey dude, how you doing? Right? He won't say beau. He won't say beau to me because I don't like using that word. I don't use beau. It's just not my word. I use dude. And he uses dude to me. He doesn't say beau. How you doing, dude? I mean, so use their words. Feelers go, just doesn't feel right to me. So when I'm showing somebody something, so how does this feel to you? Now here's where it kind of gets a little bit weird, is because if you're a visual person, you'd want to say, well, how does this look to you? But if they're not a visual person, that's not going to resonate with them. If they're a feeler, it's like, how does this feel? Now, it sounds weird coming out of visual person. I tend to be very visual, but I have other aspects to auditory and kinesthetic. But it sounds weird coming out of your mouth, but you are speaking their language. It's like when you're just speaking Spanish for the first time to someone who understands Spanish, it's uncomfortable. You're trying to search for the words. ¿Dónde está la cerveza? Okay. I mean, traje de baño. Well, after your cerveza, you look for the traje de baño, the bathroom. But it's uncomfortable because it's a language you're not used to. Likewise, when you're using kinesthetic language and you're a visual person, it's weird to say, how does this feel to you? But they hear that and it's like they totally get you, right? If they're auditory, so how does this sound? But you're visual, you want to say, how does it look? You have to talk their language. If you don't talk their language, you might as well be speaking Chinese. Again, it gets them on an emotional level. There's this emotional rapport that's going on when you're speaking their language, right? So you have to really listen to the words that they use. Number two, their cues. I'm going to call it their IQs. And you can look this up, IQs, CUES, NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Program, NLP IQs. And what this does, and this is kind of, okay, this is one of the most enjoyable parts of this, is that people will tip their hand, their tells. You know, like a poker player is looking for a tell how a person is betting, and if they constantly like scratch their head when they're bluffing, all they have to do is when the guy's making their, bet, if they're doing this, he knows they're bluffing, but the guy has no idea that subconsciously he's doing that. There are tells. They're tip, like tip the pitch. You know if the pitcher's going to throw a curveball by how he winds up, how he does his wind up. You know if the curveball's coming. So this is how you know your people, how they think. So you listen to the words they use, but you also look at their IQs. And what are IQs? We're going to make it simple. This is the very simplistic way for IQs. Okay, these are the eyes. Okay, and you look at where they're looking. All right, so let me define a visual person. Visual people look up. They look up. So they're going to be looking up. So when they're processing information, when they're thinking about stuff, they're constantly looking. They're constantly looking up. It's like they're visualizing. That's what people do when they're visual people. They look. It's like, well, see, let me think about when you first met, and their eyes are going up. That's why you ask questions, because when you ask questions, they tip you off with how they think. So, how did you and Mary meet? Well, we met. I think back in 1988, we were doing the show. Okay, they're looking up. They're trying to remember, and that tips them that they're visual. Now, the auditory people, what they're going to do is they're going to look to the side. They're going to look to the side. So Joe and Mary, how did you guys meet? They'll look that way or this way. Well, let me tell you how we met, and they'll do that. It's really weird, but they do it. They do it unconsciously. They'll look to the side, and when you think about people, it's like especially if you're not like that, you go like, why are they doing that? Well, it's because they're accessing memories, and they access memories. It gets connected physiologically to their eyes. It's like, and this has been proven all over the world. It doesn't matter what language, except for one area in the world, in Spain, that their IQs are all messed up. Okay, but most people do that. It's weird. And then kinesthetic people, the feelers, what they do is they look down. Okay, I'm making this very simple, but I want to make it simple for you to understand it. So they're looking down. And I tend to do this when I access feelings, I'm looking down. So this is also, you can get someone to feel something when you know that they're feeling something, they're looking down. It's like, so once you meet your wife, and I'm looking down, let me see. That was back in 1988, and I'm looking somewhere down here, and you're going, why are you looking down there? Because I'm accessing in my brain memories, and that's how I access information, how I feel. So when they're looking down all the time, then you got to talk about how things feel. How does that feel to you? How does that hit you? Imagine how your wife feels when you don't come home from work, and then she's got to worry about what it would feel like for her not to be able to pay the mortgage. You're going feeling. When you're using pain questions, what does that look like to you, Joe? Mary not being able to pay the mortgage. How does that sound to you, Mary not being able to pay the mortgage? Okay, you see how using the language that they speak and how they process information, just by listening to the words they use and the IQs. Like I said, look this up on YouTube. NLP, okay, NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, IQs. And there's a lot of great stuff on YouTube on how you can tell how people think. And then, so that's pretty much it. When you master these elements of bond and rapport, then man, that opens up the door for the rest of the process. You can ask very deep emotional pain questions to pull their pain out of them, and then everything else falls from there. These are the two reasons why people don't close. The two main reasons is bond and rapport and pain finding. We'll cover pain finding later. But man, this is the key right here, gang. I hope you got that. Hope it made sense. I'm gonna unmute. See if you're all still with me. See if anyone's got any questions. All right, so anyone got any questions on that?
Hey, Alex.
Hey, Joe.
I was wondering, I know that Sandler talks a lot about the bond and rapport and, some of the NLP books and so forth. Are there any other things that you'd recommend that we take a look at to cover that in more depth?
Yeah, let me talk. I answer that question. Let me talk about a couple of books. Thanks for reminding me, dude. Let me reference some books. The one bond and rapport book that I just love is this book called How to Make People Like You in 90 Seconds or Less by Nicholas Boothman. This book really is awesome. How to Make People Like You in 90 Seconds. This is an NLP book that talks about all the stuff I've just talked about. You can master this, man, you'll be the master of bond and rapport. There's a section in Sandler's book, You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar, David Sandler, and you see these, he's got sections of bond and rapport right here. And then there's another book on body language by Alan Pease. That's called The Definitive Book of Body Language. Now, Alan Pease, the name is spelled A-L-L-A-N. A little bit different way of spelling Alan, 2 L's. Alan Pease, P-E-A-S-E, The Definitive Book of Body Language. Okay, so you get these books, man, you'll kill it on bond and rapport. So Alan Pease book, The Definitive Book of Body Language, and then How to Make People Like You in 90 Seconds or Less. And then this is like the master book on our sales system. You can't teach a kid to ride a bike at a seminar. All right, so great question. Thanks, Joe, for reminding me. I appreciate that, dude. And then like the IQ thing, I'll go to YouTube and just look that up. You'll see a wealth of information on that.